Mr. Bush.
Here.
Vice President Darrow.
Here.
President McClellan.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone's had a chance to review our board minutes. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve our board minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski. Mr. Darrow. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kalinowski.
Yes.
Vice President Darrow.
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff.
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
President McClellan.
Yes. And for tonight's agenda, any additions or corrections to the agenda tonight?
No, thank you, President McClellan.
Okay, so without any, I'd like to have a motion then to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, Mr. Newmoff and Mr. Bush, a roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff.
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski.
Yes.
Vice President Darrow.
Yes.
President McClellan.
Yes. With that, we move to communications to the board. Superintendent Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. I begin this evening with just a few updates for the Board of Education. Believe it or not, the end of July is upon us as we have tonight's board meeting. We're rapidly preparing for the 2017-18 school year. There's a lot of things happening still across the school campus. We are on schedule for summer moves based upon the reconfiguration and repurposing of our school buildings to better meet the needs of students, both academically and developmentally. Teacher furniture is getting placed, final cleaning's happening. The painting that was promised for the primary school is underway. I've seen two of the colors. The kids are going to be quite surprised. The teachers and PTO that were involved in the selections with Mrs. Smith at the primary school will discover that they are very bright, cheerful, and very welcoming for what will become first, second, and third graders. So the four colors are blue, green, yellow, and purple. And each hallway will have a designated color. So the kids are going to be very excited. They actually look phenomenal. Ms. Jenkins and I were over there today to see the green and the blue and the start of the purple. And they are bright. So they are definitely primary for primary schools. So the Crayola crayon box did well. Middle school is also underway. It's getting a transformation from what I call the drab and dreary gray, that was the dominant color that was available when the campus was built, to maroon and gold. So the hallways are being transformed also at the middle school. Looks like a completely different place on the inside. So again, I think the middle school students will also be very surprised upon their return for 7th and 8th grade with the new colors and the brightness and the welcoming feeling of the building. We sent out some communications. They're started for the 2017-18 school year. August 1st is the magic date that we publicly have announced that all of the information will become available electronically to parents within our school district. So they will have access to teachers, schedules, transportation information, and all the necessary information to complete the back-to-school requirements. Most of it will happen electronically this year, so all the communications from the school district short of a postcard reminding parents how to log into PowerSchool and or to access their PowerSchool account will be coming out at the end of the month for the first week of August, and all information will become available K through 12 or pre-K through 12 for our school district that week as well. So a little bit change in practice, but everything will be accessed electronically this year for the school district, and parents will submit all of their forms back to the school district electronically as well. So we're on schedule. Teachers come back on campus. New teacher orientation starts August 11th. Teachers arrive August 14th. Honestly, I will tell you, we've already seen them on campus. So we've run into teachers every day in the last 2 weeks on campus that are already here staging their classrooms if their move has been completed. And most importantly, the first day for kids is Thursday, August 17th. That is actually the first day of school. So we're getting phone calls. Is school really starting on August 17th? The answer is yes. The first day of school is Thursday, August 17th, and we're excited to have the kids back. Presently, we're tracking at 4,897 students. So we are on target with basically the same enrollment as we had at the end of the school year. So Mrs. Brosnan, the registrar, has plus or minus 75 appointments in the queue. Now that the end of the month has arrived, people are starting to feel I better do something called register for school. So our kindergarten enrollment is going up every single day. Good thing, because we were planning for it, but that's primarily who's making the appointments. So we are on schedule and on target and looking forward to the new school year. That can track. Ms. Jenkins and I are happy to report the milling on the high school track at the stadium is complete. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with the contractors to talk about the outcome of the milling process. It looks good. We think we're okay, but we need them to tell us that because we are not the track experts. But the milling process went extremely well. The next step should be resurfacing that will then lead to a 28-day cure process for the asphalt that then will result in the layering of the new rubber top. The rubber top will be red. Then the striping will come 7 to 10 days after that. So we're still on target with the original goal of saying asphalt minimally, but hopefully rubber top as well will be in by the first home football game. Striping may or may not be done by the first home football game based upon the cure cycle of the rubber top. So we'll find that out for sure tomorrow, but right now we're on track, we believe, for the track to be installed as anticipated. That concludes my brief update for the start of the new school year.
Very good. Any updates from our Education Association this evening? Please. Great.
Hi, I'm Megan Orlowski. I'm the high school English language learning teacher as well as a social studies teacher in the school district, and I'm here to present the kudos. Thank you so much for allowing us to do this at your meetings. First, and also you have a copy of the notes, hopefully in your stack in front of you. Jill Cuthbert, Julie Horning, and Audrey Wheeler attended a week-long conference at Harvard University, learning best practices in college admissions by nationally recognized faculty and leaders in the field of college admissions. Topics covered that will benefit our students and families in the college exploratory process include access and affordability, admissions at the service academies, athletics and admissions, case studies, early decision and early action, effective guidance counseling, essay writing, financial aid, first-generation students, how admissions decisions are made, immigration issues in higher education, international admissions, professional growth, secondary school profiles, selecting college, social media's role, standardized testing, supporting non-traditional students, the economy and admissions at public universities, the redesigned SAT, and writing recommendations. Second, Jessica Whitehead took Using Google Classroom for Teaching and Learning, an online course so she could better integrate the free Google Classroom platform with her students this fall. Students will be able to access content from any device with internet and be able to access the content of the course from anywhere. Parents can help support their students through weekly email updates sent automatically by the Google Classroom platform. Jessica's favorite part of using Google Classroom is that she can post additional resources for struggling students, as well as extensions to the lesson and content she does not have time to get to in class, such as YouTube videos with more detailed explanations. Third, Linda Anthony finished her last class to complete her master's in intervention. She wrote an 18-page paper on the history of the educational movement. This gave her insight about why education was created in the first place. She reviewed different educational philosophies and how they might impact her class today. She also reevaluated her personal philosophies in the classroom and thought of some ways she might improve her teaching. Lastly, Linda Lichman completed Delcro's Eurythmics Level 2. The class was a further study of the Delcro's pedagogical method of teaching music. The method is rooted in expression, imagination, creation, and fostered through the kinesthetic and proprioceptive modalities. Incorporating individual and group movement in music education engages the total student. Eurythmics, defined as good movement, fosters rhythmic integrity and expression using the body as the primary instrument to bring out the child's musical nature. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
No oopsie.
Okay, no oopsie tonight. So we have a special opportunity right now for recognition of some student athletes.
Mr. Wildenhouse.
Oh, Mr. Wildenhouse.
All right. Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come in this evening and talk about two very outstanding young men that we've had on our track team for quite some time, and we get another one. We get Michael for another year. So this is Michael Fenster and Max Fry, and they were they won, competed and won state championships in the sport of track and field at our Ohio High School Athletic Association state track meet in May. And I guess that was early June. Michael actually won 3 state championship events, and Max won 2. These guys have also been awarded some additional recognition that I know Coach Glenn has in her notes to speak with you today. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach Glenn. Amy Glenn is one of our head track and field coaches.
Good evening. So believe it or not, I've been in the district 23 years, and this is the first time I am standing in front of this podium. So as you can tell, I'm a little nervous. I will try not to be. I did make some notes though, so I didn't forget anything about these awesome young men. So I was at the middle school for 20 years, and now I'm currently housed at the high school. And I was honored to be chosen as the new varsity track coach this spring. Which was amazing, which was a lifelong dream for me. I actually coached middle school for the past 17 years. But first, I just wanted to thank you for giving our track and field program and our athletes the opportunity to be recognized this evening at our board meeting, as well as thanking you for resurfacing of our new track, which will be super exciting come spring. Well, we'll probably use it as soon as it's open. So it is important, I think, that our community as well as the board values not only our high student achievement, but also our student athletes who invest countless hours of their time, sweat, and effort to achieve greatness. So just a little bit about our track program. We begin usually late fall, kind of early winter. We do some lifting, some conditioning. Usually happens at the K1. We also host a track and field camp for our elementary and youth students in the winter. And several of our athletes, including Max, competed at indoor meets at both Otterbein as well as OSU. So we officially kick off our season in early March, and we, as you can see, run in every type of weather possible. So our team consisted of 80 athletes, plus or minus a few this school year, which was an increase of approximately 30 athletes from our past season, which was super exciting for our coaching staff. It was exciting to see football players, basketball players, soccer players, and many fall and winter sport athletes participating in our program this season. So our motto for our season was finish on empty, hence the shirt I'm wearing today. And so many of our athletes, including our 2 state champions, obviously did that. So just want to talk a little bit about Max and Michael. Max is a 2018 graduate. Michael is a rising senior who both experienced greatness firsthand this season by representing New Albany at the state track and field championship meet in June. Max was state champion in both the 110 hurdles and the 300 hurdles, as well as setting both new school records in both those events. In addition, Max was chosen, I don't know if you know this or not, but as Gatorade Player of the Year in track and field. This award is a national award that recognizes outstanding high school student athletes for their athletic excellence, academic achievement, as well as their exemplary character. Max's competitive nature makes him an outstanding performer under pressure. He's very goal-oriented, dedicated, very self-motivated. He is always at his best when his best is needed. Max selected our very own New Albany Special Olympics program to receive the $1,000 grant as part of the Gatorade Pay It Forward program. And he will attend Dartmouth College in the fall, where he will compete in track and field. So Michael, who is a returning state champion in the 800 meters. He's going to be a senior this school year. He was state champion this year in all 3 of his events, which included the 100, 400, and 800. He won the silver and the bronze medal his freshman year at the state meet and was the state champion his sophomore year in the 800 and runner-up in the 100 and 400. So he's got some experience there on the state meet level. He also received a high achieving award this year as he was chosen as the first recipient of the Mara Hunter Courage Award at the first annual Varsity Award Show, which was hosted by Varsity Magazine. Varsity Magazine is dedicated to bringing great stories about high school athletes, coaches, and team to the Central Ohio area. So in addition, Michael competed in his first international competition in Phoenix, Arizona, and achieved 4 of his 5 personal bests. He accomplished this after having surgery the Friday before that. So That was amazing. And then this past week, he also competed in the Junior National Championship in Middleton, Wisconsin, where he competed in 5 events and accomplished first and second places in each event. He's looking forward to starting his first training, maybe for a half marathon, maybe a full marathon someday. I'm sure you saw him at the July 4th 5K leading the pack as always. Michael's also very self-motivated, strong-willed, and not afraid to compete at any events, and actually embraces the challenge of competing with able-bodied runners throughout the season. So we are looking forward to Michael returning his senior year to our program, and hopefully we will be once again standing here as he will be returning as a 3-time state champion in all his events. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, guys, I have a certificate of achievement that we'd like to give you, but I also like to say, and Coach Glenn mentioned it, we're really proud of your accomplishments on the athletic field, but the character that you both show is what we're really proud of. I mean, you're great leaders and people that the rest of the kids in our community can look up to, so we're proud of you for that. Let me give you these. You want the other folks to come? Sure. Other board members? Should all be in this picture. Yeah.
Amy, you can come up here.
Yeah. Love to. I'm all about pictures. I just gotta post them all the time.
You're fine.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm in.
Everyone stay put till the parents are done. Congratulations, Michael and Max.
Congratulations, guys.
Michael, Max, and your parents, please know we will not be offended if you choose to exit the door. We know it's not raining outside for the first time in several days, and you may not want to sit through the rest of the board meeting.
Watch the video, right?
You can watch it online if you really want to.
We have our first opportunity for public participation this evening. Nothing at this point.
We're on board liaison reports.
You're on board. You skipped discussion.
Oh, yes, those. Sorry about that. Moving along to discussion items. Then we'll get to public participation. Any board liaison reports this evening?
I could just chime in that the PTO organizations are working really hard to realign themselves to the new reconfiguration of schools, and I just want to say a huge thank you to all of them, especially the ones who are starting new PTO organizations. They've been working overtime to make all that happen, file the paperwork, and it's all, on behalf of kids. So they're working hard and getting their websites ready to go live and back to school central. What's the date on that? Is it August 1?
August 1.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my plug for PTO.
Great. We have a number of board policies to go over this evening. So, Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. In your materials this evening, we have 18 board policies that are presented for revisions based upon changes in statutory or federal requirements to update the board policies. I've shared with you previously at the last meeting the contents of these specific policies because they appeared tonight for the second time. I have not received any interim questions. Happy to answer any questions you may have about them, but they will move forward for public action this evening for adoption to continue our process to update board policy within the school district.
Any questions? Okay. Then moving along to probably the biggest discussion item this evening, and that's our 5-year permanent improvement levy. You want to start?
So based on the conversation at the last board meeting, Superintendent Sawyers and I have brought forward as an action item the 1.25 mil 5-year permanent improvement levy for you to look at, consider going forward. That sounded like the majority of the board was in favor of that one, but I think that you would like to have more conversation about it. A couple of things that I've been getting some question about is the current revaluation that Franklin County is going through in the way of property tax increases. Well, it's property value increases. So as I stated at the last board meeting, New Albany is expecting an average of an 11% property value increase. I did contact the Franklin County Auditor's Office today to see if they could give us by neighborhood what that looked like, and they cannot. They said the information would not be available until late August. But what it does mean is that while the average is an 11%, you could have some neighborhoods, and they're looking at sales to market ratios. So some of our areas, are not selling as well as others. So the Preserve, for instance, is a neighborhood that's selling very well, but pretty quickly prices are higher than what they have been. That neighborhood could, and I'm just saying this, I don't know this, but that neighborhood could have a 15 or 20% value increase. That does not mean that they're going to have a 15 or 20% tax increase. You could also have some areas that maybe only increase by 5%. That area doesn't mean they're going to get a 5% tax increase. In fact, if your property doesn't increase in value as much as the average, you might see a decrease in your taxes. Each property owner is going to see some different effect of this value. I had also had some questions about whether or not the district would see increased tax dollars from this. So we know that we have inside millage, which is not voted millage. That does not have a reduction factor associated to it. So any value increase that is associated with that 4.5, we have a 4.5 mil inside millage, there would be a nominal increase in your taxes from that. The voted millage, the outside the 10 mil limitation, the voted millage has a rollback factor. So those rates are going to roll back so that in total, the district does not collect more money than they collected when they passed each of those levies. So the inside millage piece, to explain a little bit more about that, there's 10 inside mills countywide. They're divided up differently. Some school districts have 4 mills of that. Ours is 5.5. Some go up as high as 6. Then townships might get a piece of that. The county may have a piece of that. So when you're looking at that value, your taxes may go up 1% because it's 10 mills, 1%, but it's not all going to the school district, okay? So what the Franklin County Auditor's Office has told us, and I don't know how they came up with their 11%. I don't know how they came up with the average tax increase was going to be 1.58%. But that's what they've told us. I did also reach out to them to see if they would perhaps be willing to send a couple of representatives to the district to explain all of this to the board, to the community. And they did offer, and I asked that it happen in case you had more questions about the 1.25 and weren't ready to move forward today. I asked if they had availability before the 9th, and they are able to come if we had a special board meeting on August 7th to explain all of that to the Board of Education. How they came up with the values, how they came up with their 11% increase, how they're calculating the 1.58% average tax increase, if that's something that the district wants to do. But if you look at in total, you're looking at the big picture. So if 10 mills inside is about 1% tax increase, so you would maybe see a 1% tax increase. We have 2.5 mills or 2.5% rolling off in debt millage, which means there could be a decrease in your taxes still by the 1.1%. And then the district is looking at the potential of a 1.25 mil or 1.25% on a $100,000 home tax increase for permanent improvement. So the net effect on average would be maybe 0.25 mils. So that would be, so some individuals will see a tax increase based on all of these variables. Some people may see a decrease, some people may see more than the 0.25% increase. But And each taxpayer is just a different, it's just a different scenario.
So what would they be able to tell us on the 7th?
They'll be able to talk about who the property or who the appraisers are, what their methodology was, how they came up with their 11%. I don't think they'll tell us. They may be able to tell us by taxing district, but they won't be able to tell us by neighborhood. So for instance, 222 is New Albany. That includes the links, it includes the country club. Those two neighborhoods, just thinking of those two neighborhoods, are vastly different in how quickly existing homes are selling and at what level those prices are. So within that, the country club may not be selling as quickly because of the higher priced homes. Those values may not be as high when you're looking at sales to market ratio. But there are homes in the links that may be selling really quickly at a higher value. So that's where we would like to understand what is that what are the neighborhoods doing and where are the real drivers. So they should be able to tell us, I would think, at least the taxing district. And they would also be able to explain how they came up with the average tax increase of 1.58%. I don't know that.
But we won't know the specific amounts at that point.
No. The auditor's office explained today that the first week of August, there will be a mailer going to each resident within Franklin County with the anticipated assessed value based upon the change that would be happening. And then there would be public hearings. They start a public hearing schedule throughout August into September where persons have the right to challenge what the projected assessed value is to then set the rates in mid to late November for tax bills in December. So they made it clear to us today that we would not know the neighborhood impact until the end of August. That's the soonest they would release that information to the school district. But based upon the work that Becky had done after the phone calls with the auditor's office, we anticipate that presently, using their methodology, there is an approximate benefit to the school district through reappraisal of about $126,000 annually. So giving the information that they've provided, using their reassessed what they'll give us access to, we do believe that there is a net benefit to the school district through reappraisal of about $126,000.
And that wouldn't include new construction, right?
It does not include new construction.
It's only inside millage.
Inside.
So inside millage just has 5.5 mils,
4.5
4.5 mils.
of
Outside
the school district,
for the school district. Outside millage total for the schools.
55.7.
So about 10% of our total millage, a little less than 10% of our total millage is inside.
Yes.
So 90% of the tax millage, the millage that schools get will be untouched by the reappraisal.
Correct.
Right.
Because it will be rolled back.
In aggregate.
Correct. In aggregate, because it will be rolled back. So just to make sure that that's clear, that's why the reappraisal will have some positive benefit, but it will be a very small amount. It'll be a limited amount. And the fact is, would you venture a guess as to the total value of the assets of our capital, of our physical facilities?
I believe it's over 120 million.
So, the reality is we have $120 million worth of physical facilities, some older than 20 years, average age in the high teens, in the mid to high teens, and we have to make sure that we take care of our facilities. So I think the information and the fact of a reappraisal is an important fact for us to consider. I think it's important for us to have clarity and understanding from the auditor's office as to what that really means for district taxpayers. And at the same time, we still have an obligation to take care of our physical facilities. So
in the conversation that Ms. Jenkins and I had today, after speaking to the auditor and finding out that they were available on the 7th, I just want to remind the board, and we stated this at the last board meeting, your filing deadline is August 9th with the Board of Elections for November ballot issues, should you choose to proceed for a resolution for a tax levy for permanent improvement purposes. So a special meeting on the 7th, provided that the majority of the board is available. And please recall, and we explained this at the last meeting, the resolution to move forward to the ballot requires 4/5 majority. So it's a supermajority of the board, not a majority. So it's supermajority, so 4/5 of the board. would need to be present for a special meeting if in fact you had intended to take action after hearing any information you wish to obtain from the auditor's office, to continue to deliberate as a Board of Education and make a decision and then take action to move forward.
And all four of you, if only 4 people were able to attend, all 4 would have to vote yes.
For it to move
For it to
forward.
move forward.
But August 7th, which is the date that they did offer this afternoon in the conversation, can work from the timeline if the board would choose to have additional information provided to answer some of the questions that you presented and or have heard from community members in our conversations individually over the course of the last week when I've talked to you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments at this point? I think the only other, I guess, thought that I have is, I mean, clearly there's questions that folks have asked each of us individually about what the reevaluations mean. I think we've identified or we've clarified some of that this evening. There's probably still more information that we would like to have. But ultimately, and I think this is your point, Phil, ultimately the question is not if we need a permanent improvement levy, it's when we need a permanent improvement levy. So that's just something just to make sure people understand.
It's not just when or if, it's also, it is simply prudent practice. When I was thinking about this after getting some of this information, businesses have operating expenses and they have CapEx, they have capital expenses. And it's simply prudent to have separate funding sources to assure that we have the means of taking care of physical facilities and that we use those monies for only that purpose as opposed to having them be for that can be used in other ways. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our facilities and having a dedicated funding source. If the district benefits from a reappraisal by $126,000 a year, that's less than 10% of the amount that we've been discussing that would come from a permanent improvements 5-year permanent improvements levy at 1.25 mils. And furthermore, that's only half of the amount that is potentially required to take care of our aging facilities. So, we continue to look at to be as skinny as we possibly can. We are trying to make sure that we return money to the taxpayer when we can, and yet we have new information that we just want to make sure that we're doing the right things now.
Right.
May I?
No.
I think that's important, and I want to follow up because there's an article coming out, and Sarah, I see her sitting in the audience, so she worked with us through This Week News. We do our monthly article through This Week News for Eagle Eye on Education, and this month's focus is in relationship to close of fiscal year 17, and back to Phil's comment about being skinny and achieving the goals within the continuous improvement plan specifically related to finance. And in conversations with 2 of you over the weekend and or at the end of last week, we talked about the fact that there's additional savings that's been incurred by the school district based upon the work that we did during fiscal year 17. And it'll come out this week. It'll be online tomorrow, typically on Tuesday, in the paper for This Week News on Thursday, that we had $1.79 million in additional savings to exceed our $560,000 goal related to operation and personnel expenditures so that we would not deficit spend this past fiscal year. So we did achieve that. And for full transparency, one of you asked me in conversations over the weekend, what impact does that have in part of the 5-year forecast conversation for the updates moving forward? Because clearly it's going to have an impact. It's money we did not spend through due diligence of everyone in the school district across the board. So it will positively impact the 5-year forecast. The other piece that's tied to that is the outcome of the collective bargaining agreements, and OPSE's on the agenda this evening, and I'll talk about it when we get to that next. But there's additional savings related to healthcare. This past year was $250,000. This current fiscal year for 18, we're forecasting approximately $500,000 conservatively because we'll go to market for healthcare renewals for the school district plans. So there's additional savings that has been had to that. So for full transparency, because someone's asked about it in relationship to the 5-year forecast, and I'm going to make this make sense to PI, that will positively impact the 5-year forecast. But please know, absent the dedicated funding source that we're talking about to help maintain facilities, we will continue to spend money from the general revenue fund, which we're saving, but it will still impact the bottom line. So the money is going to come from somewhere to fix the facilities and maintain them as we've been doing. So it's either going to come out of the operational expenditures of the general revenue fund, or it comes from the dedicated source that's restricted for capital improvement called permanent improvement levy. So one way or the other, please know, because I got that question today, when it's necessary, will the repairs happen? And the answer is yes. And right now, because we have a positive cash balance, if necessary, that repair would come out of the general revenue fund, because we have exhausted the 2009 permanent improvement levy that did expire, and we're in the process of exhausting the bond residual pending the outcome of the high school track. Now, we had some good news last week through the milling process that was finished, and hopefully the liability that we approved for the track won't be the full liability, and there'll be something left in the bond residual. But if that liability is there, that will be exhausted. So just for clarity purposes, I just want to make sure people understand, absent the permanent improvement levy, the future ask of an operational levy will increase because we will be spending more money out of the general revenue fund. And I know we've had those conversations individually when I've talked to you on the phone. I just want it to be understood that we have to start having this conversation publicly to help our community understand we are going to have to help maintain the facilities. The high school roof is real, and we are going to have to do something in 2018 to it. That money is going to come from somewhere.
A couple of questions that people had for me, and we've covered this, but I just want to cover it again. Permanent improvement levy doesn't mean it's a permanent levy.
Right.
It's 5 years that we would collect.
Right. You
And
would see so on the action item, it's a resolution to proceed 1.25 mil 5-year permanent improvement levy. So it's just for the 5-year period.
It is possible to ask for a continuing permanent improvement levy that would never expire. We are not asking for that or recommending that. Our conversations to date have been for a 5-year cycle to allow us to stop, reassess, confirm that it's necessary, or that it would basically be eliminated. But it would expire within 5 years.
the other question that people have asked me is, well, what if you don't need it all in that 5-year period? And go ahead.
So you would collect, the district would collect the millage that is associated, or the revenue that's associated with the 1.25 mils. If we don't need it, then we don't spend it. And then you either ask for less in the next 5 years or none at all. You wait a year. It's exactly what happened with the district when they had their other permanent improvement levies before it expired in 2009. If you don't need those balances, you don't spend them, but we would still collect them.
And it's always protected money that is dedicated to permanent improvements in the schools, the buildings, the technology.
Parking lots. Yes.
Any
It's
asset or improvement with a life of greater than 5 years.
5 years.
Right. It
Is the
cannot be
threshold.
used for anything else. It cannot be transferred to the general fund.
It's restricted.
And I just want to comment that I agree with Phil that, you know, it's really important that we have two separate funds, one that is dedicated to maintaining the investment we have here in our buildings and technology, and, you know, making sure we're not threatening our operating expenses on, you know, that we need to run the schools on a daily basis. I think it's critical that we always have some money in a permanent improvement so that we're just not draining our operating fund. And to your point, you know, I think it's important that people understand that, you know, the more we pull from our operating fund, eventually that money will run out and we will have a bigger ask later when we need to go on the ballot for operating expenses. So there's a lot of benefit to us moving forward with a PI.
it's pretty much one for one. I mean, a mill we don't collect for PI is a mill we'll have to add to the operating. And to the extent that we defer maintenance or repairs, expensive items, and they get more expensive, that adds even more. So.
Okay. That's a board item for later, and so we'll be coming back to that. But for right now, let's move on to the collective bargaining agreement.
Board of Education members, the last item on discussion this evening is the agreement with the OPSI Local 303. So we have successfully completed negotiations with the non-teaching personnel within the school district represented by OPSI. It's the classified positions for 15 different job classifications across our school campus. We've reached a 3-year tentative agreement. We're pleased to present that for you this evening for your recommendation for approval. Cliff note, high-level version is that there's a 1% base increase being recommended in each of the 3 years of the contract, subject to the fact that the healthcare changes in the contract will equal the healthcare changes required of the teachers and all other district employees. So the same healthcare options related to 2 high deductible HSA plans are being implemented January 1st, 2018, with the employee cost share going from 85/15 to 80/20 as a requirement by contract within those 2 high deductible plans. The other incentive related to the healthcare piece, the $1,000, was offered for OPSI for making the healthcare change to have a systemic impact. One difference between the teachers agreement that's dominant that is not part of the OPSI agreement was in relationship to restructuring the salary schedule. That was not a focus during negotiations with OPSI. From a marketplace standpoint, our OPSI non-teaching personnel have a 15-step schedule with 1.75% average annual increases until they reach the top. That 1.75 is very competitive within the marketplace of other surrounding school districts and our cost analysis of other third-party companies. So we did not propose any changes in relationship to that. The last piece is we did add several attendance-related items in language. There were several language changes, but I'm going to focus on attendance. We have high absenteeism related in the non-teaching personnel. We're trying to curb the costs associated to substitutes and the impact that those employees have on a daily basis when present. So we've added several sections of language through the collective bargaining process to try to mutually agree that attendance of employees at school, at work is very important. OPSI embraced that and actually helped us create language creatively together that we believe will have an impact on a daily basis to benefit kids in the classroom. So substantively, there were several language changes related to employee attendance dominantly for non-teaching staff because of their language that's available in their contract. Dr. Choi, are there any other major highlights that you think we should call to the board's attention? I mean, I know I've sent you the agreement, I sent you the summation, but we're pleased that we did reach an agreement. It was ratified last Thursday morning by OPSI. We were notified that it was ratified by their association, so it's presented this evening for action, and upon your approval, it will go to print. Any questions about the OPSI agreement?
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, public participation. And with nothing, that does take us to board items and this resolution to proceed with the 1.25 mil 5-year permanent improvement levy. Based on the conversation that we've had, I would actually like to make a motion to table this item for a later date. I'd like a second. Second. Mr. Darrow.
The later date being the 7th.
Preferably, but we would have to figure out when that would be, but at this point it's tabling it.
Okay.
And with the second, could I have a roll call, please?
President McClellan,
Yes.
Vice President Darrow,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is tabled. Moving on to treasurer's items. And I need a motion to accept all treasurer's items A through C.
So moved.
Kalinowski?
Left you hanging there.
Yes, you did. I almost didn't ask for it, so. That's one.
Second.
There you go, Mr. Darrow.
Discussion.
Yes.
I know I've talked a lot tonight, but come on, guys. So monthly financials, we ended, as Mr. Sawyer said, about $1.8 million under budget and expenses, the majority of that being salaries and benefits. some purchase services as we had a much milder winter and summer than expected. So utilities were lower than anticipated as well. We did, and we've been talking about the revenue, the tax collection, because we've had additional, what is the word?
Revenue?
Yeah, delinquent taxes,
Delinquency
sorry.
tax collection, I'm sorry.
$1.2 million more, but we've been talking about that for the last few months, so that's not a surprise. So did end better than anticipated, and that will be baked into or put into the 5-year forecast when we update that or do the new forecast in October. We have been talking about the track. I do expect that we'll have some funds left in that in the new construction or the bond residual. I don't know the amount yet. Hopefully after tomorrow's meeting with the track vendor, we will have some idea of that, but it sounds like it's good news. They were able to mill a portion of it off and it didn't disintegrate underneath the equipment. Resolution to participate in bus bidding. We do this every year. Meta is a consortia that bids out buses for their members. We've asked for 1 bus because we have 1 more left to purchase in the 5 that we had planned. We were able to get 2 of those buses on last year's bid prices, so that's actually quite good. You're asked later to approve the purchase of 2 of those buses. And then the McCoy Capital Replacement Account Fund, as part of the owner's agreement, we have agreed that we would set aside funds. The owners of the McCoy are the school district, the city, and the township. So we are putting our proportionate share aside to help with that capital fund. And at the last owners meeting, they have approved our portion of $54,570. We'll write a check to the New Albany Community Foundation. They're going to be the holders of the fund. So we'll send our money, the city will send theirs, and then the township will send their money. So that's what that request is for. Any questions?
Got any questions? Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. That takes us to superintendent items, and we can take them all A1 through F, please. Motion, please.
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski? Second. Mr. Bush? Mr. Sawyers?
Thank you, President McClellan. Board of Education members, standard employee action items under personnel this evening, the approval of all supplemental coaches for fall athletics and activities that are currently known throughout the school district, both for co-curricular and extracurricular participation. So all of the supplemental contracts do appear this evening for your approval. Other personnel action items, just to call your attention to, we're in the final hiring stages for classified personnel. We'll probably still have some cafeteria aides that we will hire in August because interviews are still ongoing for persons that have recently resigned or announced that they're not going to continue with the school district for a wide variety of reasons. But classified staffing is really the abundance of what's left for the new school year. We are fully staffed for certificated staff, including teachers and administrative personnel for the new school year. So we're still working on classified. Under general business this evening, the action items, as Ms. Jenkins had included in her report, there's contract specifically for the 2 buses for Rush Truck Centers based upon continued purchase and the offset through the EPA grant that was received. There's an action item this evening for the purchase of new kitchen equipment for the intermediate and high school cafeterias. The high school, based upon student participation last spring and the focus groups that were held, will soon be the recipient, and my guess is it's going to be mid-September based upon the delivery of all the equipment that's necessary. Is getting a new servery in the high school cafeteria that will include a slushy bar. So the kids chose it, so we're honoring what the kids requested, and all of the funds that are necessary to purchase the equipment are coming out of the food service department. I would just remind the board that our food service department is self-sustaining, both for personnel, equipment, and all costs related to the daily operations of the department. So it's a wonderful thing that we actually invest the money back into the kids. So we're buying new equipment to open a new servery at the request of the kids that all students in grades 7 through 12 will benefit from. We're adding a new steamer and a couple other pieces of equipment now that we've used the intermediate school for 2 plus or minus school years based upon its opening. There's a couple more pieces of cafeteria equipment that the cooks are asking for to, again, help support daily student needs within the building. The intermediate school will look different for lunch than it did this past school year. All 8 serveries will be open on a daily basis in the building based upon the grade level configurations for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Additionally, under general business this evening, you have recommendation, and I just want to call it out. It's yeoman's work for the high school principal, the middle school principal, our primary principal, intermediate principal, and early learning center principals with Mr. Emery, the director of elementary ed, and Dr. Hamilton, director of secondary ed. You're presented this evening with the handbooks, student handbooks for 2017-18. So I'm confident that you've had an opportunity to review them. We're in the final stages of formatting, so you're really approving content this evening. They will be posted electronically. We've gone through a communications audit to ensure that they are actually ADA compliant based upon a new federal requirement. So we're trying to get ahead of the actual federal audit to come in and verify that we've actually made our student handbooks ADA compliant to service the needs of our students. So Mrs. Steele and Mr. Galloway have been extremely busy trying to verify that we're going to meet all of the requirements for the ADA compliancy for the handbooks. But we believe we are in really good shape, and you're approving the content tonight that will be going through final format to post for our parents and students in August. So that actually will be done before August 1st because there's specific requirements that they have to complete for back to school through the electronic portals that'll be available. Senior waivers presented this evening for students that qualify pursuant to Board of Education policy to fulfill their senior year, despite the fact that the parent has moved out of district. Donations this evening, we're forever grateful for all of the donations we receive to our school district to benefit students on programming on a daily basis. Transportation reimbursements, you have payment in lieu of recommendations this evening that are standard practice. These are for the 2016-17 school year. For final payment in lieu ofs that were submitted at year end that now come forward for board policy and approval or board action for approval for payment to the persons for accepting payment in lieu of transportation for the impracticality to transport. And then lastly, in letter F, Board of Education policy adoptions, and again, it's the 18 policies that I made previous reference to that are now coming full circle that we've talked about over the course of the last month to continue to update board policies within our school district. Happy to answer any specific questions that you may have.
Without any questions, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. Now I'd like a motion, please, to enter into executive session. This is as permitted by section 121.22G4 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of considering the evaluation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski. Second. Mr. Darrow. Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. We are adjourned into executive session. We don't expect any action out of executive session, so thank you all for joining us this evening.